And now I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Tristram, and Malcolm Banks from our Well Solution Centre. So first and foremost, Tristram, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Tristram Horn. I'm the Chief Executive of a small business called Tech20. And we're an embryonic business which has got a great relationship with the OGTC, so it's a good fit. So that's me.
All right. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, sure. So I say it was an embryonic business. It was started 3 years ago, and I'm going to sort of take you through what the foundation was then, a little bit about the journey, and shamelessly use it as a bit of a marketing exercise for our technology. So I'm just letting you know to be prepared for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of what is in the pipeline for Tech as well.
Okay. And Mal, can you maybe tell us, why did you invite Tristram along to speak today?
Yeah, thanks, Nicky. I guess fundamentally because it plays to two key founding principles of the OGTC for us. One is that we want to accelerate technology development and delivery to the industry. And the second is that we're here to sort of encourage and help entrepreneurial activity in the region. And Tristram's story plays very strongly to those two sort of key principles. So hopefully you'll hear that coming through in the next 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. Okay, on no further ado, Tristram, that's over to you, and your 20 minutes start now.
Oh. Right, restart the clock. I've only got it just now. Right, see if this practice works out. Well, thanks very much for the introduction and for coming along this afternoon. I know everybody's busy, so appreciate your attendance. And yeah, as mentioned, my name's Tristram Horn, Chief Executive of Tech. And yeah, this afternoon's presentation around that sort of journey, I think it's important to start with what is a real underpinning foundation for the journey. And that's why I've put a picture of me up on my wedding day rather than what's probably a more appropriate business image in a business shirt with a Tech logo at the background. But starting the journey off is really important to have a really solid foundation in your personal life. And I've got an incredible wife who I married just over 3 years ago, and we've got 2 incredible children. And that really puts the drive and the ambition for me and for the business. Ultimately, you know, is still quite a big part of the business, and I hope to be for a long time. And it's that drive and ambition in the family and the support network which is a critical piece to a successful business. So that's why I've got a picture of me up there. I was looking for my wife as she was late for the arrival. That's pretty normal, I understand. So a strong foundation in the personal life is paramount. But I've not always been married. I used to be a bachelor before I was married, and I used to be an engineer in the business, and so I was exposed to a lot of problems which are pretty normal status quo for the business, actually, in the drilling industry. And I saw a lot of problems in different areas, and I didn't have any specific answers to those problems, but I felt like there was an opportunity. So decided to make the leap of faith to start a business, to be the sort of conduit and the mechanism to help solve those problems and put solutions in place so that those problems which I'd seen might not necessarily always be there for the future. So I decided to start the business a little over 3 years ago and made the fundamental mistake of starting a business and going straight in at the deep end to try and develop a solution. The idea was not even really embryonic to the point that we've seen it to work to today. But it was a really good learning experience. But it was an initial problem, to be honest. Going in and trying to solve a problem which you've not properly analysed the market for. Because even though I'd had the problems, it wasn't necessarily the case that everybody else had those problems. So I made mistake number 1, but rectified it by trying to sort of educate myself a wee bit. So I was sort of taken under the wing by the fantastic team at Elevator, and it's great to have some of those here today. And having come from an engineering background with absolutely no business acumen whatsoever, and to be honest, still very much could do with a lot more in that area, but from 0 to step 1 on the ladder was very much supported through the likes of Elevator, which helped sort of develop my business background, business acumen, and a bit of a understanding as to what I should be doing, really, as opposed to designing and trying to solve a problem. So ultimately, that first mistake of going in and trying to design and solve a problem, which led to too much money being spent and not enough market research being done to qualify the actual end use for the potential solution. I also made another problem, and that was massively underestimating the amount of time it takes to do these things. So I naively thought that, within 9 months, a year, this will be on every single rig all around the world, so I better do something else so I'm not bored. So I decided to start technology number 2 at the same time, which was probably not a great idea. But it ultimately led to a pretty serious lack of funds, and that support, which I described at the start in the family position, was something which really helped me through those tough times. It gave me the support that actually needed to go back to work for a little while, so I went back and did a bit of consultancy, which helped put some money back in the business. And it also gave me the opportunity to revisit the starting of the business almost, probably 18 months ago. Around about the same time that I started engaging with the OGTC, actually. So, came back with a bit of a reinvigorated bank balance, a bit of a reinvigorated ambition and confidence that the end was going to be good, rather than not good. So yeah, and through the elevator team, they had put me very closely with the Scottish Enterprise team, and the Scottish Enterprise team had helped improve my network in the business angel space. So, sort of middle of last year, I was introduced to the 2 business partners whom I'm now incredibly fortunate to have as part of the Delta Tech team, and Steve Bruce and Dave Shand, who's here as well. And they've got a wealth of experience in the technology development and commercialization space. And I'd say the team is the conduit from having an outline conceptual idea to helping drive that to a commercial product. And people do business with people, and people don't do business with a person. And you need that strength in the team, not only to actually accept criticism in that conceptual idea and help to nurture it and grow it into something which is actually going to be beneficial and appropriate for the industry, but also to give that confidence to the end users that you've got some substance and backdrop to the actual business. So, fundamental turning point, milestone in the business was establishing the team. And again, at that same sort of time, we were engaging very closely with Mal and the OGTC, and they were fantastic in helping put some finance behind the concepts and helping grow them from what was still sort of TRL 01 right up until when the OGTC became involved. Really, there was concepts and not much more than that, to be honest. But they helped accelerate that from an idea to ultimately a deployment in a really short space of time, which is not normal to see in our industry. Normal concept to commercial product in the drilling industry is in the 8 years sort of mark. We had that conceptual idea, and we had it downhole in a well within 6 months of engaging from the OGTC to having it downhole. So really incredible. There was a big bumble along with having established some business acumen in the team and a bit of finance to getting the OGTC on board and having them committed and some end users to having it downhole, which was really good. The other piece of the puzzle which fits in circa 18 months ago was doing some proper market research. Like I say, just because I'd been in the industry and I'd seen some problems, didn't qualify that as everybody's problems. So getting out there and actually putting some substance behind speaking to end users, speaking to clients and operators, and listening to what they considered as the problems and what we should be focusing on as developing the solutions to, was a really important piece. And it was in collaboration with the OGTC and that market research exercise that we managed to sort of link those early adopter operators with the finance, with the development team to be able to deliver the whole solution. And it's at that point which I kind of want to put a little bit of a gratitude out to those early adopter operators, the likes of Siccar Point Energy and Chevron. Without those sort of people, and being members and active members of the Technology Centre, I think it would be a very, very different story. I certainly wouldn't be invited up to do a Tech20. Maybe I'd be given a free lunch, but not tell you the story. And there's specific individuals within those organisations which actually deserve that gratitude from us, because it's individuals, it's champions in organisations which you need to identify as early adopters and willing participants to join you on the journey that have helped drive it. And those are the people that support Mal, support the Technology Centre, and support us. So really cannot thank them greatly enough. And like I say, we have those participants. We turned our concept with the support of finance and end user adoption into prototypes, which we manufactured, and then operationally we actually ran them downhole in the Franks test well in April of this year. And then that was a great success, which allowed us to then run them offshore subsea in a live well within 4 or 5 months of that, which is just unheard of, to be honest. And we're in a really strong position now as a result of that, and we're speaking to a lot of other interested early adopters, maybe not first adopters, but early adopters for subsequent deployments. So really, really important. Where we are now is we've employed our first non-director employee, so we've got one full-time individual that's working in the business now. And subject to looking at how things translate to Q1, there's a lot of opportunity to start growing that team even more. So that's the sort of rough outline of the journey and some of the important points. And I've kind of got to this point without actually telling you what the technology is. And I don't think that was actually necessary for the business journey, to be honest. I don't know how many people are technical in here, but actually what our technology is a technique of optimizing how cement is put into the annulus of a casing bore in between the steel and the borehole wall. And through our technique, you get a lot of other benefits: improved drill-out performance and improved casing well reliability. So at this point, we'll watch something which is a little bit more interactive than me at the front, hopefully. So let's listen to what our technology actually is in secure cementing.
At the rig floor, a casing or liner is run with a secure float shoe or float collar, a standard API RP10F Cat 3C certified double non-return valve with wiper dart receiver and drill pipe latch-in receiver, complete with backup release shear out feature. The first joint of inner string is run into the casing with the latch-in adapter at the base, complete with the rupture discs pre-installed. Once sufficient inner string has been run, the secure cementing tool is made up to the string, followed by the remaining inner string until finally the conventional load-bearing running tool is made up. With the inner string in tension, the secure tool is in torque-through position. The inner string is lowered until the latch-in adapter is engaged into the receiver, which is confirmed with an overpull. After the casing is top-filled at the rotary table, the running tool is established into the top of the string, allowing the secure tool to stroke partially closed into the free rotate position, enabling safe engagement of the running tool. Rotary connections are the seals for the cement job now, taking away reliance on large running tool seals. The string is run in hole to cementing depth where the primary cement job is pumped, following which the wiper dart is launched into the string and chased with slurry to guarantee quality cement around the shoe. Once the wiper dart lands and locks into the receiver, the burst discs are pressure ruptured, enabling the inner string contents to be circulated out via the running tool ball valve, which can subsequently be closed to allow a casing pressure test to be executed with green cement slurry in the borehole annulus, eliminating risk of microannuli development of pressure testing against set cement. Circulation can continue for as long as necessary until the inner string can be recovered. As the secure tool is still in free rotate, the running tool can be safely disengaged before picking up and stroking the secure tool into torque-through position. Now able to unlatch from the receiver before pulling out of hole, ready to go drilling straight out of the PDC drillable shoe. with no cement plugs or shoe trap to damage the BHA or dull the bit, and the casing test already completed.
Shameless marketing over. Good. So that was sort of just the outline to the technology. Now, I mentioned the acceleration of that technology. So we went from sort of TRL, 1, 2 really, 12 months ago, to having that system manufactured, confirmed as suitable for using in a downhole operational environment, and actually putting it downhole and showing it works in 6 months onshore, and then taking that forward by another sort of 4 or 5 months and putting it downhole in a live offshore well for the behemoth of the operator, that is Chevron. Who would have thought that they would have run something first? But incredible that they had that foresight and participation in the project to do so, and we're very, very grateful for that. And what we actually did here was, a well operated by Chevron. It was the old workhorse, the Ocean Guardian, that's been around decades, maybe. No, not generations, but decades. And it was on a subsea appraisal well. That's pretty, it's not an onshore well in West Texas. It's a pretty out there kind of well to go and try something new on. So great opportunity. And what we did for them was a conductor secure cement job. And rather than listening to me tell you about it, we've actually got double click. Just one.
Delta Tech are a small startup organisation, and we've now worked with them on 2 separate projects here at the OGTC. They are a company who bring a new way of working and deploying tools which bring efficiency to the industry. So our support is really to help accelerate that arrival of technology and bringing it forward to deployment.
We brought the secure cementing concept to the OGTC less than a year ago, and the progression from project proposal to downhole field trials onshore to downhole subsea field trials has been accelerated to an extent that is not normal in our industry.
Early 2018 we were planning for the Franks trials, so this was the first setup of the tool, first run of the tool, make sure everything connects and runs. We had a successful outcome there, and so then the next phase was deployment into the West Wick well.
It was the first subsea deployment for our secure cementing technology, and the intention of the field trial was, one, to check that the secure cementing system worked as designed and as it has done onshore in field trials, but primarily the objective was to mitigate the requirement for a dedicated clean-out trip.
All the objectives of the well were met. We got the tool ran successfully, the cement job was done excellently, and if we don't bring in new tools and try new things, we're never going to move forward the fields and make wells more economic.
So we were delighted that Chevron, in a trialling environment, had managed to save so much rig time. Despite all of the nuances of deploying new technology, Secure still delivered on its objective of saving rig time.
When we first looked at the project, we were looking at it as a future tool for deep water wells. However, we did get an 8-hour saving on the West Wick well.
We're looking for subsequent trials. We have the potential to run it with another operator that we're looking at. That well might happen now in the first quarter of next year, and there are a couple of other operators who have expressed interest in subsequent deployment of the tool. So we'll look to work with Tristram and these organisations to try and help take that technology forward.
Great, did it automatically. I was a bit worried then, how was I going to do that? So, yeah, fantastic that we've managed that. And thanks very much to Mary at Technology Centre for doing that. Almost upstaging Jordan on some of his skills. But yeah, really great. And it's also the support of some of the softer things, like helping tell the message. And that's where the Technology Centre have not only just facilitated the backdrop, but being able to help communicate our message to a wider audience. Offer a support which is just second to none. You can't thank them greatly enough for that either. So so we've got a bit of technical stuff. I don't know if anybody's technically minded, but one of the key value propositions for our technology is just how quickly you can get drilling on the next section. And what Chevron managed to achieve in that is turn something that's normally quite a number of hour operation into getting going on the next section into something which is just a little over half an hour. So proving that in run number 1 was paramount, and a really powerful message that we can take forward to the subsequent operators. And we didn't destroy their drill bit, which was good, so I'll put a picture of that up as well. But what's the future hold? I said at the start I was going to to a bit more about the future. And what you don't know until you've done it. And what Secure offers is a world first for controlling the circulation up the inside of your casing at the end of a cement job after the cement's been put in place. So what the team collectively came up with and we're developing now is a really profound opportunity to seriously impact the future of subsea well cementing. That opportunity of controlled circulating through Secure is developing Quick Cure. And Quick Cure is using basically a temperature controlled fluid at the end of that, so we can seriously impact how cement sets. And we can make a profound difference to the amount of time it takes to build subsea wells using Quick Cure. We also have a technology which we're developing called Core Cure. So the first time ever using Secure, you can use it with a ball drop, which is not normal. We actually thought we could do 2 balls, so that we can recover a downhole sample, which really is a world first as well. So that's pretty cool. And what I want to leave you on is a statement that hopefully inspires a bit of technology pioneership and early adoption, and that is one from Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin, greatest evolutionary scientist of the human race, stated that it's not the strongest of a species that survives, and nor is it the quickest, but it is the most adaptable to change. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tristan. Firstly, for such a brilliant presentation, and secondly, for being so nice about all of us.
No worries.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
It's nice when that happens. So open it up to the floor now. So we've got about 15, 20 minutes now for Q&A. So who would like to kick off with a question for Tristan?
Excellent presentation, Tristan. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, I suppose it was a combination of things. So throughout my early career and late career as an engineer, I saw problems. I saw problems with being on rigs, pressure testing casings. I saw problems with drilling out cemented shoe tracks. I saw problems with placing cement and getting cement back to where it needs to go to. And the idea, I guess there wasn't an idea yet at that point, but it was just a recognition that there was a problem. And on a little bit of investigation, I saw the way that we were doing things in a subsea environment was very different to how they did those operations in an onshore environment. And when looking at that fundamental difference, without wanting to get too technical in the forum, it was basically the fact that they do stabbed in inner string cementing onshore, and we didn't do that offshore. And so it was a case of recognizing that there's a lot of problems with the offshore industry, and those are kind of solved onshore by doing stabbed and inner string cementing. So it was a thought process that there must be a way of taking that very well field-proven technology and mitigation to problems onshore and putting them offshore. And that there wasn't necessarily there was that original outline concept 3 years ago. What that's manifested itself into now, and we're still filing IP. And in fact, last year we had a big intellectual property file which has fundamentally defined the solution that we're now providing, which is the I guess you want to call the idea, the actual service that we're doing now. So to answer your question is where it came from. The original problems defined that there's a potential solution out there. The idea has grown and grown and grown over the 3-year period of starting the business to where it is now. So it's there's no single idea, and I certainly wouldn't be able to take the credit on the whole thing of it. It's the team that have collectively helped bring their own ideas into the solution, which have developed the whole service that it is now.
Thank you. Hamish.
So I would agree. Excellent presentation, Tristan. Can you give us some insight into how you penetrated the almost impermeable for most startup companies? Did you approach the operator, service company, and at what levels?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really important question, Hamish. Thanks for that. And again, an opportunity to be nice to you guys. But yeah, that impermeable barrier of the operator is a tough one to get through. And that market research exercise which we conducted was a very well received piece of work that we did. And it wasn't a sales pitch. It wasn't a commercial style presentation. It was an honest, do you have problems in this part of the industry? If yes, could you quantify those problems for us? Do you envisage a solution around this sort of line to be something which might help alleviate those problems? So it was an honest piece of market research with no commercial angle, which helped engage the operator end user. Because at the end of the day, nobody likes a salesman. And in fact, us in Delta Tech, we don't consider ourselves salesmen at all. It's about technical consultation and defining whether or not there's a potential end use to our service. And we're very open in saying, if there's not going to be a benefit for you guys using us, we don't want to speak to you because you don't want to speak to us. And we only want to be engaging in conversations where there's a mutual interest and a pull, because you can't push something in. It has to be a pull. So that market research piece of honest technical discussion was a key barrier breaker from opening the channel. And that, in combination with the fact that those individuals that we were speaking with were active members of the technology center, meant that that conduit, that facilitation through the legal framework, through the financing, was a seamless one, a very, very straightforward one for them to actually do the uptake of, yes, we've got a problem. Can we get through the procurement barriers, which is another big barrier for operators to get through? And yes, and that facilitation through the technology center meant that was pretty straightforward as well. So hopefully that answers the questions about the impermeable barrier of the end user operator. You ask about the service company. The service company side of things, what we've done to help make sure that there aren't going to be any barriers put up between the incumbent service providers is make sure that we're improving their opportunities for delivering their key performance indicators in their contracts. So the usual incumbent cementing providers to an operator are usually have their KPIs defined in the quality of the cement placement, making sure that they get the cement where they want to. And our service offering aids all of their KPIs. So they're interested in helping us and pulling us through into the operator. You know, we're not taking any bread off their table, which would normally be a barrier. You know, if a Schlumberger or a Halliburton or a Weatherford or a Baker or somebody of that sort of ilk and magnitude recognise that there's the potential for a wee little start-up embryonic company like Delta Tech to potentially have a bit of their pie, they're not going to help us. Whereas we're not doing that, and that, I think, is an important pull-through factor as well. So actually the service companies are pulling us in. One of our best sales engineers is a Baker Hughes cementing engineer, because he sees the benefit of our service, so he pulls us into operators. The operators recognise that we're just technical consultants, if you want to call that, at the end of the day, which are bringing them solutions, and they know that they've got the avenue to actually engage on our services through the fact that they're technology centre members, so the framework and everything's in place there already. So that's really helped the acceleration of the technology.
Thanks, Tristan. Next question. Keith.
Hi, Keith Waldridge from Eigen. Thanks for a really engaging presentation, Tristan. Just wondering if you can share with the audience any lessons that you've learned, through your journey.
Yeah, great question, because there's been a lot, and learnt the hard way. I think one of the key lessons is to listen to your customer before you go out and start developing anything. You don't have a business until you have somebody that's willing to pay for a solution. And without listening to what they want as a solution, they're not going to pay for it. So listening to your customer is fundamental, paramount, number one, and letting them help define the solution. Number two is building a team early. I said that people don't do business with people. People don't do business with the person, they do business with people. That is key. And I bumbled along on a very small amount of finance in the first instance, so I couldn't afford to build a team, or didn't think I could afford to build a team. But actually, building a team early, you don't necessarily need finance, as long as you've got a vision which other people buy into. But you also need to be able to have the ability to not want to hold on to the equity of the business. And that's a fundamental point as well. You need to be able to give that away, and well, not give it away, but you know what I mean. You sweat equity, etc., etc. So being able to let go of equity and have the opportunity and have the recognition that you need to build a team early is another really important lesson that I learned, because I think that would have potentially brought the uptake, the development of the concept a little bit earlier as well. Another one is I don't necessarily think it was a lesson, but it was a really important thing to communicate, and that is you've got to be open to criticism. And if you're going to be real pig-headed about stuff and just put up barriers yourself when you're not willing to accept criticism, that's not going to create a very good culture or a very good ethic to building the solution. So accepting criticism and being open to building on that and making it into constructive criticism is really, really paramount. And I think those are probably some of the key lessons.
Okay, we've got a gentleman at the front here.
Sorry, you say you got your first non-director employee, but how many people in total have been involved in the idea? How many engineers?
Yeah, so we're a core team of 4 in the business. 3 are equity, and 1's non. So the core team of 4 is kind of where we are just now. We do lean on individuals to support us in a sort of consultation fashion. So we've recently been awarded and certified to 9001, ISO 9001, ISO 14001, big milestones for a small company. But we didn't, manage that resource within the core 4. We leaned on consultants for that. We also have the next consultants ready to help operationally as and when they're ready. So it's a core team of 4, but with some roundabout consultants where we couldn't justify bringing them on as staff. So there's a team there. So it's pretty nimble. It's pretty tight. We don't have big nights out as a team. Don't need to book a table.
Only when he goes out with the OGTC. Yeah?
Precisely. Yeah.
So we've got time for another couple of questions. Anybody else?
Hi, Tristan. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I saw that's very similar to stabbing method. Are you expecting to do all casing string with this method, or is it just designed for a conductor?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So, and you're absolutely right. It's not just very similar to stabbing technique. It is stabbed it. We're taking what we've done is we've taken the technology from onshore, modified it very slightly to our intellectual property, and combined it with the enabling piece of technology to provide the stabbing facilitation, to provide the stabbing service in a subsea environment. And that's been probably another accelerator to the technology when operators realize that actually this is not too far off the trodden path. It helps them get over the line with it. But in answer to your question, is it only for conductors? No, not necessarily. Part of that market research exercise actually concluded that there's a lot of potential opportunity in many of the casing strings during the well construction process, all the way down to the final reservoir liner even. So normally the reservoir liner is done with cement plugs in the normal way. You can do them with inner strings, and people have done liner jobs with inner strings in the past. But actually doing it with a stab-in has got a number of other benefits in the reduced shoe track, so you can immediately access that. You don't need to drill the last 40, 50 meters of the well. So there's opportunities to apply this technology throughout the well bore, actually. Next year, we're not landed everything yet, obviously, but we've got a number of deployments that we're talking about for surface casing, where we're actually going to be hopefully doing both the conductor and then the surface casing. And the benefits in doing surface casing with Secure, again, they're They're compounded. They're in the sort of well reliability area of having a solid base to pressure test against, which normally in a deep water environment you don't have. With a pour buoy technique, you're hoping that your cement is strong enough to hold your pressure, whereas with Secure you don't. So conductor, surface casing, potentially liners, we can offer an optimization service throughout the wellbore.
Okay, thank you. Time for one more. We've got one more question. Gentleman here at the front.
This is potentially a question to the entire room. Do you think the recent years, obviously, operators have been trying to drive down costs a lot more than they have been in the past. So do you think the faster than normal sort of idea to dropping it down whole has been helped in your case by their higher drive to reduce costs?
Yeah, that's a really, really profound question. Very good. I think in short the answer is yes. The opportunities for putting it down whole have drastically been reduced because there's just naturally not as much drilling activity ongoing. But that drilling activity which is ongoing has a more focused approach to cost efficiencies. And the operator community have done everything that they can in the traditional sense of cost efficiencies by squeezing the supply chain and benefiting from that. But it has put more of a focus on, right, what could we try that's a bit different to getting it out there. And the other thing that has been benefited through this low-cost environment and the way that the industry has kind of been regarded nowadays is the fact that the actual drilling process is inherently a bit cheaper because of the supply chain. So the impact of things going wrong is not as big as it was. When wells were costing 40, 50 million, $60 million to drill, something went wrong, it was a big thing. When wells cost $12, $15 million to drill, there's less of a risk. So the appetite, I think, for trying something new is more pronounced because it's not going to cost you as much if it goes wrong, which it shouldn't, and it hasn't in our scenario. But also the cost efficiency drive from management has been a factor. The other benefit of this current environment is the fact that you've got so much more support. Try and do this 4 or 5 years ago without the likes of this centre, you'd be up against all the barriers like Hamish was explaining. So I think it's been the perfect storm, but a nice storm, if that's in terms of being able to actually deploy new technology. I think it's a really exciting time of the industry just now, and I anticipate more technology adoption to take place as a result of that.
Thank you, Tristan. So that's us out of time for questions. Mal, you got a few sort of closing thanks since he's been ever so nice about us.
Yes, I guess, just would like to express our thanks from the OGTC perspective for Tristan in terms of sharing his journey with us this afternoon and putting in a few positive comments about us on the way as well. I think hopefully you appreciate that the type of journey that Tristan's been on is something that, from an OGT perspective, we're really pleased to have been part of. I mean, Tristan had our first ever project that we put in place here at the OGTC, and it's been great to see the progress he's been able to make from somebody who came in here with a plastic model and a few bits and pieces of sketches on a piece of paper to actually now seeing him actually getting operationally deployed technology out there in the industry. I think it's a fantastic achievement for him and the team around him, and it's great to have been part of that. So I just like to thank him for his contribution to our organisation as well over the last 18 months, and hopefully wish him all the best as we go forward, and we look forward to working with other similar companies in the future. So thanks for the team for putting the event together as always. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for that.